What's make of the story that a former Wisconsin women's basketball player posted on TikTok? Is that program in trouble?
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you for tuning in, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings, here with you every single day. I appreciate everybody who listens to the channel, everything that you guys do for this. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. It is a late edition of Locked On Badgers Live, but really do appreciate wherever you guys listen to this. Thank you. I want to start here. Today we're talking junior day visits, some really big prospects on the football side. I want to talk to you about a couple underrated guys that came on campus, what I really like about them. We're also going to talk about this basketball offense, how they put teams in a blender, and why it's so good. And we're going to compare it to 2 years ago, where some of those differences are. But I think we got to start here because this is blowing up into a bit of a national story. It obviously involves Wisconsin, the Wisconsin women's basketball team. So former Wisconsin player Tessa Towers, who's now at Ball State, played for Wisconsin 22 to 24, posted on TikTok a bunch of stuff, right? And some of these things, other former players have come out and said, yeah, like, thank goodness we survived it. Thank goodness we're out of that. Now, I want to be super careful and super clear here. We don't have the whole story. This is half of the story posted on a social media site. So for sure, wait for all the details to come out. I know that's what Wisconsin's doing. They're going to be looking into it. I'm going to get into that in a second. But first, let's get into some of the comments made by Tessa Towers, again, former Badgers player. She said, quote, "My freshman year of college, I felt like a lab rat for my coaches and staff because they would put me on new medications every other week." She said, "I was 17 years old." Towers said her former coach made me sign a release for her to access my therapy sessions or I'd be kicked off the team. Towers also alleged that the coach and staff forced her to get tested for autism, and added that the coach gave me a choice between admitting myself to a mental hospital or getting kicked off the team. That's just kind of a sampling. It goes on and on. Essentially, it speaks to a culture of disrepair, of issues managing player mental health, of issues in the locker room, at practice. It speaks to a dysfunctional character or a dysfunctional culture. And there's a lot of players who have left this program the last several years. There are assistants that have left this program the last several years. I do want to add so the University of Wisconsin responded to these comments. There were several people that asked the University of Wisconsin for a comment. This is the response from the University of Wisconsin. I think it's important to point this out that, again, these are allegations. These are posts on a social media page. We do not have the full story. I don't think that's the full story. I would be shocked if it was. University of Wisconsin said, "We are aware of comments shared online by former Badger student athlete Tessa Towers, and we will be looking into this matter. We care deeply about the physical and mental well-being of all student athletes on our teams during and after their times on campus. While we would like to share additional context around Tessa's comments, federal privacy laws prohibit us from publicly addressing the health-related claims made on Tessa's social media accounts." Okay, so that's kind of it. That's what's out there, right? You have Tessa Towers going on TikTok saying, "I was forced to take medications I didn't know. I was forced to get tested for autism, even though I told them I didn't have it. I wasn't allowed to go on certain trips. I was kicked out of practice, even though someone else instigated a fight. I left the coach's office crying every day. My freshman year was ruined." It went on and on and on from there. Now, I will say I have seen a lot of players and coaches simply disagree on things. And sometimes, the player's side gets out there and the coach's side doesn't. That happens. And again, I want to be very clear. We don't have the other side of this story, but this is not a good look. And Wisconsin's going to look into it. And then you look at where this Wisconsin women's team is. Moseley, Coach Marissa Moseley came to Wisconsin a couple years ago, and every year she's improved that win total. First year was 8, next year was 11, last year was 15, and it felt like there was some momentum building. And then this year it's just off the rails a little bit. They've lost 8 straight. In the Big Ten, they're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten by conference standings. None of these games in this 8-game losing streak have been particularly close. The closest game has been a 9-point loss. Every other game has been 10 plus, a lot of 15, 20-point losses. So this season, they're probably not going to get even to what they did last year. This season feels like it's spiraling out of control. And now you also have this. Ultimately, Wisconsin is going to look into the details. They're going to try to validate facts here. If this stuff is true, then there's no room for a coach that would do this at the University of Wisconsin. I think that's a very easy call. And quite frankly, with the lack of success of the program, there's not a lot. I hate to say it like this, but if you coach better, if you play better, if you have more results, you do get more leeway. That's just how life works. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Please don't infer that, but that is how life works. And right now, this program isn't very good. They're on an 8-game losing streak. Again, they have some really good players. Sarah Williams is a stud. She's absolutely awesome. Ronnie Porter is really good as well. And this team started out well this year. Again, they won 15 games last year, which felt like progress. And now you've lost 8 straight, and 8 straight in pretty bad fashion. Now, some really good teams that they played, but they haven't been particularly close at all in this 8-game stretch in the Big Ten. You're at the bottom of the barrel again. At what point does Wisconsin just say, the university athletic department just say, now we have this locker room drama, this program is stumbling again. We just got to figure it out and make this program successful. At what point does that happen? Because I would love a strong women's basketball team at the University of Wisconsin. And maybe it is this team. Maybe it is Marissa Moseley. Maybe she is the person that will get us there. These recent results are a little frustrating, and it kind of points to no, that's not the answer. But Wisconsin has been one of the worst Big Ten women's basketball teams forever, and I don't understand why. I don't get it. What is it about this program that we can't find our footing in women's basketball? Because I'll tell you this program, this university, this state, they support women's athletics. If you give them a good product, it's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Look at women's volleyball. Look at women's hockey. People give a crap. They do in this state about basketball, about women's sports. If it's successful, the Badgers haven't been out of the second round ever in women's basketball. They haven't been in the tournament since early 2000s. You look at the men's team, where if you don't make the tournament, we go and we burn the Capitol Street down. We riot. We call for coaches. We freak out. We have reaction shows. The women's team hasn't been to a tournament, and this is certainly well beyond and before what Marissa Moseley has inherited. Hasn't been to a tournament since, I think, 2002, 2003, and that was a first-round exit. Why is this program so bad? There's no reason for it. The state of Wisconsin is a basketball state at some points. There's a lot of talent, both men and women, that come out of the state of Wisconsin. There's no reason for it to be this bad. I'm not expecting UConn. You're right. We don't need to be South Carolina, Tennessee, Stanford. But can you make the tournament once every couple years? Can you win a Big Ten title once a decade? Why can't you? This is Wisconsin. You can be great in volleyball and hockey, men's and women's. You can be great in track and field. You can be great in men's basketball and football. We've seen success across the board. This program has to be better. And I get that women's basketball doesn't maybe move the needle in a lot of spots. I bet you would move the needle more if it was a better program. And now you have this drama, this locker room stuff, and you're in an 8-game losing streak. It kind of feels like, I don't know. It kind of feels like it might not be working out for Marissa Moseley. Like, that might be it. And I don't know. Again, all details need to come out. I am not casting judgment on either side of this because I don't know the full story, and that would be completely unfair of me. But I can tell you it's not a sign of a healthy culture when you have former players commenting about how poorly they were treated, and then other former players who have left commenting and like, yeah, I'm glad we got out of that. It's not a sign of things are going great. I'll tell you that. And then you've lost 8 straight. Again, there's really good players on this team. Sarah Williams is a star. She's one of the best players in the Big Ten, and that you give Marissa Moseley credit for developing her. But it's not enough because they haven't been competitive in the Big Ten. They're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. They're at the bottom of that, and they may not make the Big Ten tournament. Much like the men's tournament, the bottom 3 teams don't make it. So this program has got to get figured out, and Wisconsin has to figure out what happened here specifically, and if what Tessa Towers is saying is correct. Then you can't have a coach who denies mental health treatment, right? Like, again, there's 2 sides to that story, but even outside of that, this team is stumbling again. It's free falling a little bit. They got to figure this program out because it's Wisconsin. It's the Badgers. We don't do terrible for this long for no reason. We got to figure this program out and this side of it out. All right, we're going to take a break there. Get your comments. Come back. we're going to talk about Junior Day and a couple of my favorite prospects that came to Madison, including one guy who I think is a must get for Wisconsin. That's coming up next. Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the ultimate spot for all your sports betting needs. Again, if you listen, Super Bowl 59 is coming up, and that is amazing. Right now, one game, two teams, endless possibilities. There's no way to make every play more exciting unless you're going to use FanDuel. Right now, whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, which is probably going to be Mahomes, or betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to first final whistle. Download the app at FanDuel.com to get started. Bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official sports partner of Super Bowl 59. Also the official sports partner, I've said it, of the Locked On Podcast Network. Really easy and simple to use over at FanDuel. And the Super Bowl is coming up. I know it's not the Super Bowl. Maybe a lot of us wanted, but what better time to get on FanDuel and make it a little more enjoyable then? Make it a little more exciting. That's over at FanDuel.com. All right, let's jump into let's get some comments here. Let's see. Isaiah Lopez says, sucks to hear these kinds of things. Hopefully UW gets to the bottom of this. Yeah, so UW's investigating right now, Isaiah. They got to find the facts. They got to figure out what happened. Again, it's you can't just go off a social media post and say, that's it, we're done. No, they're going to do an investigation. They're going to figure it out. But again, even outside that, the bigger point is this program is still kind of a disaster right now. You can't get clobbered in 8 straight games in the Big Ten in year four of being the coach. Like you can't have this type of swoon in the middle of the year. Like you lose these games, fine. You can't lose all of them by 9, 10, 15 points. It doesn't feel like it's in a healthy spot, even outside this locker room potential issue. Alien Space says women's hoops team is a disaster. Isaiah Lopez says 20 years. Let's see. Mitch Ames, so many talented high school women's players have come from the state. This state's been good. Men and women. Like this state produces basketball players. It's not, listen, it's not the top of the board, but you can make a living off landing in-state kids. And we bemoaned it for years on the men's side, right? If you can get some of these in-state kids, what is this program going to look like? Well, that women's side as well, there's talent there. There's absolute talent there. There's no reason for this program to be at that level. Let's see. Toby Earl says, unfortunately, sad to say this is her last year. I will say this. I don't think this is a Marissa Moseley thing because this program has cycled through coaches for a while. Listen, let's talk Marissa Moseley one more second. Marissa Moseley came from UConn. She was part of Gino's staff. Like she was at Boston for a while. She had a pretty good resume. It feels like when coaches get here, they come in with decent resumes and it doesn't work, which to me feels something more institutional, like something that isn't working, isn't clicking institutionally, whether it's a support level or it's just hard to believe they've whiffed on so many coaches like back to back to back. I don't know. Figure it out. Like you got to fix that program. Yeah, Matt James says so many coaches, so many losses. All right, let's go here. Let's get into Junior Day because I do want to hit that. Junior Day happened this last weekend. Football, a bunch of players I think are really exciting. I want to start with Zachary Washington. Zachary Washington, 6'2", 175, 180-pound receiver coming out of Illinois. 3-star guy. Forget the 3-star ranking. This is like a 4-star importance player for me. What I've talked about it a couple times. How many receivers have the Badgers gotten in the last 2 recruiting cycles? 2, right? Is it Kyan Barry Johnson and Eugene Hilton Jr.? That's not enough. This is a huge year recruiting receivers, recruiting running backs because they didn't get a running back last cycle. And then obviously every year is a huge year recruiting defensive line. But they have to get receivers this class. They have to absolutely load up this class at receiver because they haven't done it enough the last 2 classes. Sorry, I'm battling a bit of a cold, so you're just going to have to bear with me on this. Zachary Washington, again, 6'2", skinny, slender. But listen, you've never seen fat legs on a racehorse. He moves. He's fast. He's quick. He's a 4'4" guy. You can tell he's got long arms, long limbs. Really good in the open space. Has some special teams versatility. This is a guy who, when I'm watching him, it reminds me a little bit of a Jared Abbrederis. Similar type of size, not as well built. Abby was a little thicker, but both about 6'1", 6'2". Both had deep speed. Both are guys that you can kick the ball off to. They can return kicks. They can return punts. They can get the ball in end arounds. They're tough in open field. I like him a lot. I know he's a 3-star guy, but you look at the measurables, a 6'2" guy with a 4'4", 4'4" type speed that he's listed as a 4'4" guy, which means Blazer, he's probably like 4'5", 4'8", plenty fast, but it's good deep speed. And then he's good on special teams. He gives you return ability. This is a guy I like a lot. Washington coming in, big time prospect for the Badgers, because I think if they get him, he starts to fill some of those speed issues that the Badgers have had on the perimeter. They have to get taller, faster guys, more guys like Vinny Anthony into the program. I think he gives you some of that. So Zachary Washington, a big prospect came in. Let's go to another one. I want to talk about Titan Davis. He's probably the other guy that most excited me. Coming in, Titan Davis is a big guy. Let me go to the next comment here. Did they get Alien Space? Did they get a running back in the portal? No, they did not get a running back in the portal. Again, that's why this is a big class for running backs for the Badgers. Running backs and receivers, they have to be able to land those guys. Yeah, so Titan Davis coming in, 6'5", 260-pound defensive lineman. Really good burst. Plays low. A lot of 6'5" guys play high. Titan Davis coming in. Junior day, 4-star prospect, one of the best prospects in the Midwest. He's a guy who has size but plays with leverage. Really good motor, can play all along the defensive line. He's one of my favorite guys in this group, probably the highest rated group that came in this list, and you can tell why. Ready-made size, can play on the outside, can play on the inside on a defensive line. He gives you versatility that a guy like Leteju and Jalen Williams that can play on the inside on running downs, can switch to the outside on passing downs. Big, long frame, can knock passes down, can stand up a little bit. Titan Davis is a really interesting one for me. Gavin Mueller, a tight end out of Illinois. They've been on this kid a long time. Super underrated, 6'6", 240. Gavin Mueller is interesting in the sense of he's a basketball guy and a tight end. Really underrated athlete. He has the potential to be a really good combo tight end, which means, he can put his hand in the dirt. He can block. He's also a guy that can get out of the seam. He can catch the ball. He can box people out. Has great functional size. Gavin Mueller is the guy who's really interesting to me. Two more I want to hit on here. Owen Cabell. Let's go back to receivers. Owen Cabell, 6'3", 205, coming out of Nashville, Tennessee. Again, big possession type body, big frame, deceptive speed, big receiver class, right? This is what we keep talking about. They have to hit on receivers in this recruiting class. That's why I like Zachary Washington and then Owen Cabell. 6'3", 6'4", really good size, jump ball radius, can red zone threat, deceptive speed. And you look at the type of guys who Coach Grimes, who this offense is going to want. They're going to want guys who are big, physical, can block. That's a guy like Cabell. He's a guy that can definitely fit into that mold. And then a few other players that fit in there. But the big guys, again, Titan Davis, look for him. Zachary Washington, the really fast receiver, 6'2", 175 with special teams ability. Owen Cabell, 6'3", big physical body receiver. Gavin Mueller, a 6'6" tight end. They're going to have their work cut out for them, I think, in this class. I don't know if this class is the 26 class that is going to match up to the 25 class or the 24 class. I'm not sure. If it does, they're going to have to land the guys like Titan Davis. They're going to have to land some of the players that they've had into this group, and they're going to have to land them early. They're going to have to land a quarterback. They're going to have to land a couple running backs. The offensive line class the last 2 years, I don't know if they're going to match that in 2026. They bet back-to-back 5-person, really strong offensive line classes. There's not a ton of here's the other thing. There's not a ton of in-state talent in Wisconsin in 2026. So that right there is going to make it a little more difficult to match up with what they did the last 2 years, where there's just no in-state guys that they're necessarily going to pivot to. So I think the 26 class is going to be a bit of a struggle for this group. I don't think it's going to match up with what we've done in 24 and 25, but you still got to add quantity. You still got to add quality. And you look at that junior day, big pieces here: Titan Davis, Owen Cabell, Jake Johnson, Zachary Washington, Gavin Mueller. Benjamin Novak was also on campus. He's a commit. So it's nice to get into 2026 recruiting. A bunch more to come there. Let's take a quick second, and then we're going to get into this Badgers basketball team, the offense. And I'm going to just pull up kind of a comparison 2 years ago to now, and just to show how balanced and how deep and how explosive this Badgers offense is, and a quick key to it. That's coming up next. Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show, and a quick second, as always, to say thank you for tuning in. Today's episode brought to you by, listen, it's that time. We know it's that time. We don't always love that time, but we know it's that time. It is almost tax season. You're probably getting your W-2s. You're probably getting your tax notices. TurboTax is here. Taxes are waiting. They're waiting to be done. You're having to worry about them. You don't have to do that with TurboTax. Right now, TurboTax gives you an expert that will treat your taxes like their own. They give you undivided detentions. They find deductions that you don't have to stress about. An expert, again, Not a lot of people like doing this. So there's things that are more worthwhile in life. Don't waste your time, energy, and stress trying to do this stuff. Find the expert that's TurboTax so you can get your money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. This is taxes. Get that expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile apps. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. All right, let's jump back into this. Finish off with basketball talk. And again, quick second to say thank you to everybody tuning in. I am a little under the weather, but I do appreciate it. Hey, JB says, what's up, my brother, on Wisconsin? Greg Campbell says, did you move from your basement to the attic? This is above our garage. And I am so stoked to be up here. It is a long time coming. Let's talk some basketball really quick because this offense is so good. And one of the notes I made in the last game is they just put teams in a blender. Now, this defense can be equally bad at points. And his rebounding can be equally bad at points. But this defense is really good. If you look at the latest synergy numbers across all possessions, so fast break, post-ups, isolation, pick and roll, across all possessions right now, Nolan Winter is in the 99th percentile in the country in points per play. Kamari McGee, 98th percentile. John Tonje, 91st percentile. Stephen Crowell, 87th percentile. John Blackwell, 78th percentile. Carter Gilmore, 73rd percentile. That is an absolute staggering amount of players that are all individually performing at a really high level of efficiency. If you go back 2 years, so right there, that was 6 players, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players that are all at least in the 73rd percentile or higher. 2 years ago, where it's the Chucky Hepburn, Esijan, Crowell, Klesman team, the Badgers only had 3 of those players, and they were in the 70s. The Badgers have 6 of those players now that are in the upper tier efficiency-wise offensively from an individual standpoint. They got 6 of them. 3 years ago, they had 3. And 3 years ago, those 3 guys, none of them would have cracked the top 6 on this team, or the top 3 on this team. The offensive efficiency is incredible. And there was a play specifically, I'm going to break it down on film, I'm going to put it out, where Tonje pump fakes and goes in the dunk on Esijan. The whole reason that works is nobody is willing to step into the paint and help. Every single player, right? Every single player from Nebraska is glued to their guys. So nobody helped on Tonje. Nobody stepped in the paint because they're terrified of leaving McGee in the corner. They're terrified of leaving. They're terrified of leaving Klesman, by the way. They're still closing out and hugging Klesman on the perimeter. This team is so good because the spacing is so difficult to deal with. And now you have Tonje, who hits 5 threes. When he starts pump faking and going, and nobody's going to come in and help because every single person is scared to death of leaving their guy on the perimeter, this defense is just going to put you in a blender. Because what do? You help off ball side, and then you leave Kamari McGee, who's shooting 50-something% in the corner. You can't do that. Do you help off ball side and leave Nolan Winter, who's one of the most efficient offensive players in the country right now? This offense could shoot its way into a Sweet 16 run, an Elite 8 run. We got to talk about it. And by the way, if this team goes on a run in March, we are doing a locked up Badgers. We are doing a locked up. We're doing a lot. I mean, definitely under the weather today, but we are doing a locked on Badgers podcast, road trip, meetup. If this team makes a run, what does this team need to do to make a impromptu meetup run? Elite 8? Sweet 16? I mean, certainly not in the round of 32. Do we do it in the Sweet 16, or do we wait for an Elite 8 and say you got to get to the Elite 8 to do a meetup? That might be something that we got to talk about and figure out. Greg points out the attic is much warmer than the basement. Yeah, it is. It is much, much warmer. JB, good question here. Ryan, even though spring camp hasn't started yet, early enrollees and transfers are on campus. Have you heard anything from early training? There's going to be guests coming up this week. Really good guests that we are going to talk about early results, early look at the portal guys, what they're looking like in the weight room. That's going to be a really fun one. That's coming up next. Herb Herman, is our 26th class concerning you so far? I struggle to see it matching up to the last 2, just based on the early people that we're in on, based on some of the battles we're in, and based on the lack of in-state talent. I do think it's going to be a difficult thing to match up to the last 2 years. So I do struggle with it a little bit. Now there's some other Illinois guys that weren't on this junior day that they've been in on. King Liggins is one that they're really high on. So we'll see. But I think they got some ground to make up, Herb. And I think you're right to be a little concerned there. Mitch says Elite 8. If we get to the Elite 8, we are doing a locked up. Oh God, she keeps saying locked up. I am hopped up on medicine, y'all. But we are doing a locked on meetup if we get to the Elite 8. 100%. 100%. I agree with that. Yeah, the Alien Space says it's really pick your poison for defenses. It is. It is. Now, I'll say this, when they play a more physical team, like a bigger, not just in the post. I think that's the obvious one, right? When they play somebody physical in the post, what happens? Crowell and Winter struggle. But when they play somebody more physical on the perimeter too, like bigger, longer, more physical, and they don't have to double Crowell, then you get into the spot where that is kind of this team's weakness. Can this team manufacture offense in that spot? That's a little more difficult for them. But yeah, if we do Elite Eight, we are 2 in a road trip. We are getting together. Really do appreciate it. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it there. Look for some big time guests up this week. We have a fun week. We have multiple guests. One I've been waiting on for a while to get back on, but on Wisconsin. Thank you guys so much. I know it's a late episode, but appreciate the heck out of you. Let's talk later. Big guests coming up this week. As always, go check out Locked On Big Ten. All the biggest stories from that channel over there.